Welcome to Peacock Horror Movies Part 2. Um, so remember, like I said, I've been off work for a bit, and in that time, I've just been inhaling horror movies for the past few days while I edit my book. And I decided, why not? Let's rank them 10 at a time, because that seems like fun. So that being said, I don't really have to spend much time on this intro because you already know what you're getting into. Let's just get right into that number 10. All right, number 10 is the oldest movie I've watched to date, coming from 1990, and that is Dead Dudes in the House, aka House on the Tombstone Hill. Um, so as it is, this dude bought a house and he plans to renovate it. They go in, but the spirit of the old lady and the daughter who owned the house beforehand are in the movie. And when I say in the movie, I mean in the house. And of course, they kill the dudes. This movie is very weird. The acting in this movie is so bad it's not even funny. Like 90% of these actors are really bad at delivering their lines. And I mean really, really, really bad. There's a couple moments where a couple of them have some fine moments, but most of them are just so terrible. And I think it's because it's consistently bad that it just takes me out. I will say this, it is worth a watch once if you are with a bunch of friends, because it is fun to make fun of. And in my opinion, I think the practical effects are good. It looks good. The setting is good. Like, the makeup of the movie is fine. The delivery of it is bad. Really bad. And it's very formulaic. One kid dies. Kid meets the kid that just died. And then the kid that just met that dead kid then dies, and you rinse and repeat. So on and so forth. Until there's only one kid standing, and he escapes the house and turns around to get an axe in his face. So the cast does not survive, but I don't care because it's the 1990s and I didn't care for the movie. 5 out of 10. Okay, so Asylum, like others, is a found footage film about a paranormal investigation team. I'd say more so in the same vein as Ghost Adventures than like the Sam and Colby and TFIL. Or they seem to have like a budget and it's going on TV and not on YouTube. It's 100 Ghost Street, The Return of Richard Speck. And like I said, the team goes in there to investigate, and Richard Speck doesn't like their company. And in fact, he gets offended that they say he was a terrible killer in his life, having killed only 7 people. Honestly, what holds 100 Ghosts back, The Return of Richard Speck, is not its setting or anything like that. Like most, it's the characters. They're not good. The main lead guy on the project is a super dick, which is why I'm glad he died first. And then you have the other 2 guys who aren't much better because they're pretty cowardice and selfish, trying to make the 2 girls do all the heavy lifting. And even when a guy comes back, they literally hand him the camera, even though he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's looking for. He has no idea what's going on. They're like, yeah, just go down there anyway, man. Better you die than me. Go down there and get what we need. And then he goes down there and dies. And then they have to run because then now they're down a camera. Which is the only way they can see Richard Speck, by the way, is through the camera. And they killed off the only likable character in this whole movie. I believe Jackie was the blonde, but the one that's on the camera, the one reciting knowledge and stuff, the face of the piece, she's the only likable character in this whole film. The only one. And they kill her off a little over halfway into it. Right out, why would you build her up to be the final girl? Only spend time developing her. You don't really develop any of the other characters. Only to kill her off, than to have no developed brunette Jin and the two coward guys. It makes no sense to me. Jackie should have been the one to live the longest. I don't know if this is the first ever point of view film I've seen, or first person film that I've seen, but man, was this a trip. Basically, your home dog here is in charge of this little ranch do-hang as like the manager or whatever, as a zombie apocalypse breaks out after two agents disguised as FDA guys come and grab him into the cornfield when everything starts happening. It's a wild ride. It is a huge wild ride. Honestly. And honestly, those two agents are the only campy-ish actors in here. So this one surprised me because, like I said, I haven't seen many point of view movies or first person perspective movies, and to watch it in a zombie film, it just gave me first person perspective, like a video game. Gave me video game vibes. So I was expecting video game tropes. Don't know why. Just was. I guess it's because some of the moments in the movie reminded me of like the cutscenes from a first person video game, and it's like the way the main lead moves and behaves kind of also emulates that kind of movement. It's very weird and somewhat jarring, but if you can get past it, the film is fine. And the agents really ham it up in the cornfield. I'll admit that. But other than that, a lot of the acting is fine across the board. And there's some heart-to-hearts between the main character, Eddie, and his wife throughout the film, and them discussing their issues with their marriage and stuff that really develop them. And it makes you actually care for their marriage more than you would actually think. So I thought that was interesting. And then at the very end of the film, because obviously your homeboy's got to get bit. I mean, it's literally in the title. Eyes of a Zombie, or Eyes of the Dead. So when are we going to get to be in the eyes of the dead? Well, in the last 10 minutes, that's when. He stands in front of the mirror contemplating on shooting himself in the head, and he looks at the picture of his wife's ultrasound, which I'm still confused if the baby was actually born or if it was stillborn or if she was just recently pregnant. I'm still confused on that. I'm going with stillborn based on the flashback, his light flashing before his eyes. But yeah, that scene where he's standing in the mirror and you get to see him for the first time, it lasts so much longer than it should. I'll admit that mirror bit lasted way longer than it needed to before he failed to shoot himself, turning into a zombie. But that's like my only major complaint with this movie, is that mirror scene lasted way too long. Otherwise, it's just a fun, wild, slightly campy ride. Alright, man, this movie was wild. Okay, like, this girl is trying to get to an airfield while a zombie follows her across the desert. Just one zombie. Just a sole zombie. This is basically a buddy zombie movie across the desert. That is what this movie is. That being said, this isn't a bad movie at all. This is a very funny buddy zombie movie. For the most part. And because for the hour and a half runtime it has, only about an hour of it is with the zombie. So there's that. But Smalls, the name of the zombie, is the best character in the whole movie. He really is. He makes this movie what it is. And the main character, I feel like they were trying to make her like Harley Quinn-esque. With her whole attitude and her Las Vegas aesthetic, her red hair highlight, the way she talks to Smalls with colorful insults when she slowly comes to like and admire Smalls and sort of trains him. I don't know. It's weird. Their dynamic, their friendship, their love for each other. So weird. I couldn't tell if she liked him as a pet or if she was falling in love with him. There is one scene I need to warn about, though. She does get taken advantage of. And that could be triggering. So I would like to note that. But other than that, the movie's a lot better than you would expect it to be. This movie is good, but confusing. Obviously, it's about this writer who got into a car accident that killed her child and took her eyesight. So now her therapist suggests while he's on vacation, she go on vacation to somewhere remote out in the woods to get a breath of fresh air and finish her book. So that's exactly what she does. When, again, I'd like to know, there is some taking advantage of in this film, which could be triggering to people. It's not as graphic as the one in It Stains the Sands Red, but it is still there. When obviously you can see a bunch of kids come in, and I'm still confused on the timeline of when they come in after her disappearance. It's weird. But yeah, if I had one complaint about this movie, it really is the confusion on the timeline. Like, I have no idea. Has it been hours? Has it been days? Has it been weeks? Has it been months since this girl disappeared? I don't know. And that's what I don't like. Also, obviously spoiler alerts are in full effect, and I should probably put that somewhere in the description. This movie turns into like Don't Breathe, where she's the killer, but they kind of want you to keep guessing on who the killer is. And for a moment I was, because it's like, well, I don't understand why the guy would be killing the kids. The one that kidnapped her. Because it's kind of obvious who the guy is, although they want it to be a big reveal at the end of the movie. So, it kind of has to be the girl, because otherwise why would she be the only credited name on the card that they show you before the movie starts? So, and they kind of want you to make it seem like Nate does it. I guess that's another thing. I really hate Nate. And the fact that he makes it so far in the movie before the other ones kind of makes me mad. I mean, this movie is a tale of two halves. Really slow start, and then it turns into Don't Breathe. And the Don't Breathe part kicks the pace up a lot. The issue with the Don't Breathe part is they kill off every character you're attached to before they get to the characters you're not attached to. And by the end of the movie, which it's not a completely bad ending, but I mean, all the kids die except for two. But the one kid that doesn't die gets arrested because it looks like he did all the damage. Because, I mean, at the very end, he shoves her down the steps as the cops come. But the cops don't know she was the one killing all the kids. And throughout the film, Luke's, trying to get with Haley and all this stuff, who just recently broke up with Nate. She's like, yeah, Nate and I are done, but it's a little more complicated than that. And then at the very end of the movie, you find out it's because she's pregnant, which is what the blind lady was dealing with, was her child being killed in a car accident. And Haley's mom did not like that message at all. She really did not. Like, she was very kind of sassy and attitudinal towards the blind lady. But other than its confusing nature, I thought the film was good. I just wish it was a little more clearer. And if it was a little more clear, then I think the film could have benefited greatly. But as it stands, it's an interesting film with a confusing delivery. I don't really need to explain Firestarter. It's been around for decades at this rate, and here we are with a remake of it because it's that time. It's been 2 decades since the film, right? It's about that time. Let's throw Zac Efron in it. No, all joking aside, I don't think this movie deserves the hate it gets. I just don't. Like, I get it. People hate remakes, especially remakes of things they care about. They're attached to. That being said, objectively, this film isn't a bad film. I think its special effects are good. I think it's really great. And it took me halfway through the movie to realize that Zac Efron, his ability in the movie is just basically a genjutsu from Naruto, which is super dope. But apparently it's hemorrhaging his brain and whatnot. And I thought the film was good. I was a little mad the wife died, but I mean, I guess so did the dad too. I mean, both her parents are dead by the end of it. She's Batman. No, I'm joking. Either way, the film is fun. It's a fun ride. It's a clear message. It's a clear delivery, which is more than I can say about Alone. And for that, I think it's a fine, serviceable movie. And the acting isn't bad. It's fine as well. I think people just hate on this film because it's a remake done in a slightly different way. Maybe not slightly. I don't know. I've never seen the original Firestarter, so maybe that's why I don't hate this one, because I've never seen the original. I think my parents own it, though. Fear Inc. It was about a boy who married up in life, refusing to get a job, but has date night with his girl instead, or anyway, and they go to a haunted house, and he's not very impressed. So guy's like, I think you're right. Here's Fear Inc. And so, they warn him not to do it. He does it anyway because, he said his best friend said his boss did it. She hasn't been seen since or hasn't come to work since. But, you can't help himself. So, of course, they do it. And it's like this super intense, like, built from the ground up, specifically catered to your specific interests horror experience that takes one hell of a twist after a twist. I swear this movie has like 3 gears to it. And when I say 3 gears to it, I mean you've got the first half, which is largely a comedy. Then you got the second half, which is horror comedy, because that's when everything starts happening and everybody's freaking out except for him, who's playing it as a game. And then the third half is straight horror, because it's when he starts to believe he's actually in a horror story. But no, his friends are in on it. They plotted the whole thing, but he just accidentally killed the actor who's trying to kill them. So now they've got to hide the body. But Fear Inc., they're going to know, and they're going to come for their man. So the friends dip, and they try and hide the body. But Fear Inc. finds them, takes them out into the middle of the desert, and says, "You took my friend, so I'm going to take yours." And they kill his girlfriend, leaving him stranded in the middle of the desert. He frees himself, escaping with the shovel, goes all the way to the diner, goes inside the diner, and his girlfriend's there. She's like, "Yep, this was the plan all along. This was the plan all along." and they have this rap party, and after the rap party ends, Fear Inc. kills all four of them. Now, this is one of those movies where I wish it had a happier ending. I wish all four of them walked out of the diner and lived to have another day. But I don't think the bad ending necessarily makes the movie any worse. Just like it leaves a little bitter taste in my mouth, but not enough to make me feel so bad on the movie like I did with Butcher. Butcher's ending left me with a bad taste in my mouth. But it was so good up till then. Anyway, Fear Inc. is a really good, funny horror movie that just twists and turns like no other. So this movie is about a group of prank callers who do prank calls and upload it to YouTube for content. And as these two best friends soon find out, one of their previous victims is not a huge fan of their work. Now, I didn't think much about this movie coming into it. I thought it was like, oh, don't hang up, prank callers. It'll be nice. It'll be interesting. And then it hits. Like, this movie hits hard. Oh, fuck. Like, wait, get off my drink. Stupid gnats. Don't know where the fuck they came from, bro. They weren't here yesterday. What the fuck? Anyway, it hits hard. Basically, his friend comes over. He's having relationship issues. He's trying to, cheer him up, make light of it. And then they get a call. And it's from a previous victim who is now pranking them and uses their own tagline of, don't hang up. Well, at the very beginning of the movie, during the prank, the big thing to note there is that when they revealed it was a prank, the girl did not have the phone to her head. Her phone fell underneath the bed, and she left it there, and they revealed it was a prank. Hi, Momo. So she never found out it wasn't a prank. Or maybe she did, but not immediately. So, this guy tortures them, gives them, choices, a life for a life choices. Or while they're selfishly thinking of saving their loved ones and trying to find a way to save themselves as well. Mostly with Sam, it's saving Peyton. And with Brady, it's saving his parents. But then Sam finds out that, his video feed isn't live. It's 2 hours behind schedule. And that's when you find out, yeah, he killed Brady's parents at the very beginning of the film. So his parents have been dead this whole time. But yeah, it leads into this whole kerfuffle, I guess you could say, at the end of the film, where he gets Sam to kill Brady because he puts his mask on Brady. And then, he reveals himself, pins him to the ground, and basically says, he must suffer like me. And then you hear a gunshot and cameras in the distance. So you don't see who he shot. And then the camera wakes up with Sam with the gun and the knife in his hand. He goes out there and he sees that Peyton, his girlfriend, was shot in the head. So he framed Sam for the murder because maybe he got framed for the murder of his child, because that prank at the very beginning of the film, the lady accidentally shot her own child through the door. She saw the door open and she just shot without hesitation, and then the little hand came through. So the big message of the story here is payback's a bitch. And, what goes around comes around. So The Endless is about two brothers who go back to their old cult to find closure. And when they get there, it turns out that one brother enjoys it, and the other brother is still questionable about it. Also, about how they just don't age. The Endless is almost a sci-fi supernatural horror movie. It's not a slasher. It's not gory. For the most part, there's a nasty explosion for sure. But basically, the UFO cult they were a part of is in a mountain, and this mountain has a special property to it. They're stuck in a time loop. These cultists don't age because they're dying and reliving the same set schedule every time. And then there's other people in the wilderness too. There's Carl, there's Mike, and there's some guy in a random tent who has the worst of all four of them. Just running consistently until he explodes. And then you have Mike and his friend in the house who does researching until he burns it all down. Then you have Carl who goes and goes and goes until he shoots himself in the head. And then the loop restarts again. So this movie is very fascinating and very intriguing. It's very slow paced and not high paced. Very suspenseful. Until the very end when they have to escape the tidal wave of the loop coming after them, and they break through the barrier and they're safe. This movie has a happy ending. Woohoo! Yay! It's a very thought-provoking and intriguing film for sure, which is why it is number 2 in this top 10. And I think a lot of people think it should be 1, considering what my number 1 is. So my number 1 is Cannibal and the Carpet Fitters, which starts off with a bang. Couple gets lost in the woods. Guy dies. Girl finds the house, and it's cannibals. Then you go back to the Cupid Fitters, and you meet your people, your Cupid Carpenters. You meet your 2 goofballs. You meet the airhead son and the hard-ass Tasha. And they go off to this cannibal house to recarpet the floors. Although, not really. They don't want their floors carpeted. They just want their stomachs full. Honestly, this movie is fantastic. I love it to death. It's so charming. It's so funny. If you have ever watched Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The End of the World, with Simon Pegg and I forget the other guy's name. Nick something Frost. I don't know, but it's a lot like that. And the 2 main characters in this film even look like off-brand versions of those 2. Like, this movie, you can tell, is very heavily inspired by that duo's trilogy. You can tell easily heavily inspired by it. You can tell they're trying to emulate it in like a sincere way, where that style of comedy meets Wrong Turn or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, basically the cannibalistic archetype. But like I said, the movie is just phenomenal all around. Like, every character is on point, except for the Cupid Carpenter's boss and his daughter. Those are the only 2 actors in this film that I felt like were not that good. Everybody else does their job phenomenally. The serious characters like Tasha and the cannibal mama are amazing. And all the comedian characters are great. Honestly. It is just amazing. Cannibal mama and Charlie survive. but the other three cannibals all get off in hilarious ways. Basically, everybody from Cupid Carpenters, except for the daughter and the two main carpenter guys that are like the equivalent of Simon Pegg and his buddy, have a more ambiguous ending. Because, they're stuck down in the Charlie hole and they find another exit, which leads them to a village. And apparently everybody in that village is a lot like the cannibals because they come out with weapons high, ready to attack, and the carpenters fight back. But before they fight back, the guy says, "Carpenters don't cry," which I feel like is kind of like a Devil May Cry reference almost. But earlier in the movie, he was talking about how he was having marital issues, and his friend was kind of looking at him, being like, "Come on, man, you're better than that. You're amazing, man. Carpenters don't cry." And he's like, "Yeah. You know what? You're right. Carpenters, we don't cry." It's just great. And then that ties back in at the ending. Phenomenal, and it really does give me like a Devil May Cry sort of reference vibe there. And I really hope that's what they were going for, but I don't know. This is a British comedy after all. Who knows? Maybe that's just a coincidence. But I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. Honestly, so far, like I said, The Farm from the last movie, worst movie I've seen so far. Cannibals and the Carpet Fitters, the best movie by miles that I've seen so far. Phenomenal. I would recommend this to any comedian horror buff out there. I mean, if you're one of those people that don't like comedy in your horror movies, yeah, don't watch this. This is a comedy first and foremost, than it is a slasher horror film, honestly. But if you don't mind comedy in your horror film, especially when the comedy is more of the focus than the horror, then yeah, you need to watch this. The greatest film I have seen on Peacock so far. And with that's it for part 2. And I will be back with part 3. Who knows? I've got to watch 10 movies in order for that to happen. So with that, I'm going to go off and watch 10 horror movies. Hope you have a great day. Remember, you could be the best you could possibly be. If you like the video, give it a like, comment for that. Super special, awesome. Subscribe to the event. That'd really me out. And ta-ta for now.